Mom whispered. Don't tell your therapist everything. Confirming exactly how much I still needed to finally share. Her hand was on the gear stick, knuckles pale and the yellow streetlight bleeding through the windscreen. The engine was still running, ticking softly in the cold, but we hadn't moved since we pulled into my apartment's parking lot. I could smell her perfume, too sweet and powdery, and the faint ghost of coffee from the cup holder. My seatbelt was still on. So was hers. It felt like we were both strapped into some ride I hadn't agreed to. She leaned closer like she was telling me a secret, eyes flicking toward the windows as if my therapist might be crouched behind the bushes with a tape recorder. It was a Thursday evening in late autumn, the kind of cold that made the steering wheel feel like metal. I'd just finished my 4th therapy session. Mom had insisted on picking me up, since it's dark and that area's dodgy. I told her I could Uber, but she pushed and pushed until I said yes, like I always do. We'd been quiet most of the drive back, the radio low, some soft pop song about heartbreak playing in the background. I'd been replaying my session in my head, bits of sentences floating around: scapegoat, emotional parentification, you were the adult in the room too soon, when she suddenly reached over and squeezed my wrist. You do know, she said, voice light in that heaviest way. You don't have to tell her everything. Therapists like to twist things. Be careful what you say in there. Don't exaggerate. Don't make us sound bad. The word "us" lodged in my throat. I stared at our reflections in the windshield, her face tight around the mouth, my own expression blank in that practiced, survival way. A part of me shrank, like I was 8 again, and she just caught me whispering on the phone. Another part of me, tiny, but there, rolled its eyes so hard it hurt. I unclicked my seatbelt slowly, the sound loud in the small car. If you're worried I'll make you sound bad, I said. Maybe that's something to think about. My voice came out flatter than I intended, like all the feelings had been drained and only sarcasm was left. She flinched like I'd slapped her. God, Alex, she said, dropping my wrist. See? This is why I'm worried. Your therapist is already turning you against us. The thing is, I hadn't told my therapist much. Not really. Not the real stuff. I'd given her the PG version, the highlights reel of my anxiety, the safe stories about stress at work, and not liking conflict. I'd been skirting around my family like they were something fragile, something I'd get in trouble for touching. But sitting in that car, with Mom whispering like we were co-conspirators in a crime against herself, I felt something in me tilt. If she was this scared of me, telling everything, maybe everything needed to come out. I started therapy 2 months after my 30th birthday, which I spent alone on my couch with a supermarket cake because I was too sensitive to handle the usual family drama. That's the phrase my parents love, too sensitive. It covers everything from me crying when my dad shouted to me asking not to be called names as a joke. My friends had been gently nudging me toward therapy for years, but it took a panic attack in the frozen aisle of Woolworths to actually make the call. I wish it were a more glamorous origin story. I didn't have some grand epiphany. I was just standing there holding a bag of peas when my phone rang. I saw a Mom on the screen and my whole body reacted like I'd been plugged into a socket, heart slamming, hands tingling, vision narrowing. I couldn't breathe properly. I put the peas down and walked out of the store without buying anything, leaving my basket half full in front of the ice cream. I sat in my car with my forehead against the steering wheel, phone buzzing in my hand, and thought, I am 30 years old and my mother's name on a screen makes me feel like I'm about to die. That's when maybe I should talk to someone. Stopped being a vague idea and became, if I don't, I'm going to lose it. The first day in therapy, I apologized to the therapist, Hannah, for rambling about work. That's what I did, talked about my job. I told her about my boss sending emails at 11 p.m., about the client who kept moving the goalposts, about feeling like I was always behind. I left my parents out of it, like they were guests of honor at a party I wasn't ready to invite her to. Work sounds like a lot, Hannah said, nodding. But you also keep using words like always and never. I always feel like I'm failing, I never do enough. I'm curious where you learned those rules. I laughed it off. Catholic school, I said. Anxious brain. You know. She smiled a little. Maybe, she said. We can just keep that question in the back of our minds. I knew she meant family. I knew we'd get there eventually. I just didn't know that my mother would help push us there by literally warning me not to talk about her. Back in the car, I opened the door and let the cool air hit my face. My heart was pounding, but there was a strange clarity in it too. Like someone had cleaned a dirty window. I'm going inside, I said, unhooking my tote bag from the floor. I'll talk to you later. Mom reached out, fingers curling around air as I stepped out of reach. Alex, she said quickly, don't be like that. I'm just saying, don't throw us under the bus to make yourself look more. I don't know. Traumatized. I actually laughed. I didn't mean to, but it burst out of me. Trust me, I said over the car roof. If I wanted to make myself look traumatized, I'd have to downplay half of it. Her face shut down. That mask she wears, the one that says "How dare you," slid into place. You really are changing, she said. I don't like it. I know, I said. That's kind of the point. I closed the door gently and walked toward my building, my knees weirdly shaky, my chest tight. I felt like I'd done something huge and stupid at the same time. The whole way up in the elevator, her whisper echoed in my head, "Don't tell your therapist everything." Okay, I thought as I pressed my key into the lock. Challenge accepted. Growing up, secrecy was practically a religion in our house. We weren't allowed to talk about what happened inside these walls with anyone. If I mentioned a fight to a friend, Mom called it airing our dirty laundry. When I once casually told a teacher my dad got really mad and broke the remote, I got the silent treatment for 2 days in a lecture about never making your father look like a monster. Family business is family business. Dad would say, tapping his temple with one finger. You don't hand people ammunition to use against us. The ammunition, apparently, was the truth. There's this weird thing that happens when you grow up like that. You start pre-editing your life in real time. You don't just experience things, you instantly sort them into safe to share and keep absolutely secret. You learn to tell stories that aren't technically lies but are missing the parts that would make people go, wait, what? Like, Dad was strict about grades. Not, Dad ripped up my drawing in front of me because I got a B. Mom gets overwhelmed sometimes. Not, Mom once didn't speak to me for 3 days because I forgot to take the chicken out of the freezer. We didn't talk about feelings much. Not, I learned to cry silently into my pillow because if they heard they'd tell me to stop being dramatic. So when I walked into Hannah's office the following week and she asked her usual gentle, "How was your week?" I hesitated. Normally I'd pick some work thing or talk about being tired in a vague way. This time, I thought of the car, of Mom's hand on my wrist and her whisper, and I decided to do the thing she was afraid of. It was interesting, I said, settling into the chair. I could feel my heart rate up already. My mom picked me up last time, and on the way home she told me not to tell you everything. Hannah's eyebrows lifted just a fraction. Oh? Yeah, I said, trying for a laugh I didn't feel. She said therapists twist things and make parents sound like abusers. Then she said not to exaggerate and to be careful how I present our family. How did that feel? Hannah asked. I looked at the tissues on the table between us, already calculating how many I'd need. Like confirmation, I said slowly. That maybe there are things I should have told you 4 sessions ago. We both smiled at the same time, but mine cracked at the edges. I told her then about how my chest tightens when my phone lights up with Mom ringing. How I rehearse every serious conversation in my head 10 times before I say it because I'm braced for her to say I'm overreacting. I told her about the frozen peas incident, The way my vision went blurry just seeing the contact name. It was still the edited version, but less edited than before. Has your mom ever said anything like that before? Hannah asked. About not talking openly? I snorted. My whole life, I said. We were never allowed to talk about what happened at home. If I told anyone she'd been yelling, I was betraying the family. She'd say, no one needs to know our business. They'll think we're bad parents. And what would that mean? That I was ungrateful, obviously. I said automatically. Good kids protect their parents. Don't make them look bad. There was a beat of silence. What about protecting you? She asked softly. My throat tightened. I shrugged, because I didn't have a real answer. That session cracked something open. Not a dramatic floodgate, more like a small fracture that let some water seep through. I left with puffy eyes and a pounding headache and a sense that I'd done something dangerous but necessary. I also left with Mom's text waiting on my phone. Did you tell her we fight sometimes? Don't make us sound crazy. Every family fights. I stared at it and realized she genuinely believed that. She genuinely thought my biggest sin would be making our house look more chaotic than every family. She had no idea how much I'd already edited. The next few weeks, therapy became a weird double life. On Wednesdays, I'd drive to Hannah's little office and take off another layer of it wasn't that bad. On Sundays, I'd sit at my parents' table and play the role I'd always played, the sensible, calm daughter who holds this family together. As Dad likes to say. The overlap between those two versions of me started to feel like the stretch of rubber that's pulled too tight, and you know it's going to snap. The more I noticed, the harder it was to unnotice. Like the way Mom would sigh theatrically whenever I didn't answer a call straight away. I guess you're busy with your new life, she'd say when we finally spoke. Your therapist must be keeping you very occupied. Or the way Dad suddenly started dropping. We did our best. Into random conversations like a verbal tick. We'd be talking about something mundane, like the price of fuel, and he'd throw in, well, we did our best with you kids. Out of nowhere. My younger brother, Sam, stayed mostly out of it. He's 26, lives across town with his girlfriend, and has perfected the art of saying nothing while scrolling TikTok at family gatherings. He was the first one I told about therapy. We were at a cafe, waiting for our food, and I blurted, I've been seeing a therapist. Like I was confessing to a crime. He looked up from his phone. Oh, he said. Good. I blinked. Good? He shrugged. Yeah. Maybe someone will finally convince you it's okay to take a break once in a while, he said. You look wrecked half the time. I stared at him, genuinely stunned. Why didn't you say anything? He smirked a little. You? The family rock? Please, he said. You just tell me you're fine and then go organize Mom's filing cabinet or some shit. He wasn't wrong. When I told him about Mom's car whisper, he rolled his eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. Classic, he said. She does not want anyone fact-checking her version of events. What do you mean? I asked. He shrugged. She has this neat little story she tells about us, he said. Strict but loving parents, kids who were a handful but turned out fine. No one ever actually asks us. Did you ever think it was not fine? I asked, my heart weirdly hammering. His face shifted, like he'd been caught. I mean, it wasn't the Brady Bunch, he said. But I dunno. It's just how it was. That. Just how it was. Echoed in my head for days. That's what I used to say too. In therapy, Hannah kept gently steering me back to specifics. You say they yelled a lot, she said once. Can you remember a particular time? My brain immediately went blank. That's another fun part of this. Most of it is feelings without scenes, shadows without detail. But if I closed my eyes and let myself go there, images swam up. Once, I said slowly, I forgot to take the bins out. I was maybe 11. Dad had told me the night before, and I was tired from homework and just forgot. I overslept. He came into my room and ripped the duvet off, shouting about how lazy I was, how he worked his hands to the bone and I couldn't even do one simple thing. He said if he'd spoken to his father like I did, he'd have had his teeth knocked out. How did you respond? I remembered the cold air on my bare arms, my heart pounding, the sheet pulled at my feet. I didn't say anything, I said. I just got up and took the bins out. In my pajamas. Crying. What did your mom do? She told me not to forget next time, I said. And that I was old enough to know better. Then she told Dad not to be so loud because the neighbors would hear. Not because of you, Hannah noted. I stared at the rug. No, I said. We sat in silence for a moment. If a friend told you that story about their childhood, she said, what words would you use to describe it? I knew what she was fishing for. I resisted. Rough? I said. Strict? She tilted her head. Cruel? She suggested. Humiliating? The word humiliating hit me like a punch. My throat closed up. I nodded because I couldn't get any words out. I didn't tell Mom that part of therapy. I told her we talked about stress. She seemed appeased by that. Stress is safe. Stress is respectable. Stress means you're hardworking. Trauma means someone might ask questions you don't want to answer. The more honest I was in that little room with Hannah, the more surreal my life outside it felt. My parents didn't change. If anything, they doubled down. The more I gently said things like, I can't talk right now, I'm tired. The more Mom said things like, ever since therapy you've become selfish. The night in the car was a turning point because it was the first time I saw the mechanism fully exposed. She wasn't just generally uncomfortable with me being in therapy. She was actively trying to manage the information flow. She was saying the quiet part out loud, don't tell everything. Don't fully be known. That scared me more than I want to admit. There was something so strategic in it. So I did the thing that terrified me. The next session, I told Hannah everything that came to mind, without smoothing the edges. I told her about the time Mom read my diary and then grounded me for talking back in it. I told her about Dad driving too fast when he was angry, that sick lurching feeling in my stomach at every red light. I told her about the names. Drama queen, ungrateful, attention seeker, and how they lodged in my ribs. At one point I was crying so hard I got a headache. Hannah passed me tissues and sat there quietly until I could breathe again. You're doing something really brave, she said, when I apologized for being a mess. You're breaking a rule that's been in place your entire life. Do not tell the truth about what happens at home. Of course your nervous system is freaking out. My mom would kill me if she could hear this. I muttered, half laughing, half sobbing. She kind of did, Hannah said. When she asked you not to tell me. I froze. What do you mean? Hannah's voice stayed gentle. That whisper in the car, that was her trying to stop this exact moment from happening, she said. Not because you're lying. Because she's afraid of what someone might call it if they heard it unfiltered. You're calling my parents abusers, I said quickly, defensive on reflex. I'm not labeling them at all right now, she said. I'm just noticing that your mother is actively managing what truths are allowed to leave the family. She paused. How does it feel to tell me anyway? Like jumping off a cliff and discovering there's ground closer than you thought, I wanted to say. It feels disloyal, I said instead. But also, like I might finally be able to breathe properly. That night, I ignored 2 calls from Mom after 9 p.m., my little rebellion. The third time, she left a voicemail. Alex, she said, sighing heavily. I know you're there. Don't start this again. I'm your mother. I deserve to know what's going on in your life. Call me back. Deserve. That word always sets my teeth on edge. I texted, I'm heading to bed. I'll call you tomorrow. Love you. The next day, I braced myself for the lecture. It came right on schedule. You used to tell me everything, she said. I didn't, I said. I just told you what wouldn't get me in trouble. She scoffed. Oh, so now you were abused, she said. Is that what the therapist told you? I took a breath. She didn't put words in my mouth, I said. She asked questions. And I realized some things weren't okay. Nothing is ever okay with you. Mom snapped. You're never satisfied. We worked our fingers to the bone for you, and now you sit in some office and trash us to a stranger. I'm not trashing you, I said quietly. I'm telling the truth about how things felt for me. The truth, she repeated, dripping sarcasm. Everyone has their own truth now. I suppose mine doesn't matter. It does, I said. It just doesn't cancel out mine. She hung up on me. That night, my brother texted. Mum's in a mood. Did you two fight? Sort of, I replied. She's pacing the kitchen monologuing about your therapist brainwashing you, he sent. Then, also, I started therapy. I stared at the screen. Wait. What? Yeah, he wrote. Don't make it weird. He told me about it in bits over the next few weeks. His therapist, a guy named Mark, was helping him with anger at work, panic when his manager criticized him, the way he couldn't say no to extra shifts without feeling physically sick. Sound familiar? One night, after a particularly bad blow-up at home where Dad had gone off about kids these days, Sam called me sounding rattled. Mark asked me today if anyone ever apologized when we were kids, he said without preamble. And? I asked. Well, I thought, obviously, yeah, he said. We're a normal family, right? But then I tried to remember. He paused. I can't think of one time they said, sorry I shouted, or sorry I scared you. They just move on. Or we'd have to comfort them. I lay on my couch, staring at the ceiling. Yeah, I said. That tracks. And he asked me if I ever felt like I had to be the adult, Sam added. And I was like, no, that was Alex's job. I laughed, but it kind of hurt. Thanks, I said. No, like, he said quickly. I told him how you used to, like, intercept Mum when she was in a mood. Take the yelling so I didn't get it. How you'd make jokes to calm Dad down. And Mark was like, that's a lot for a kid. I swallowed. It was, I said softly. Anyway, he said, voice going gruff with embarrassment. I mentioned your thing. With the calls. Not answering after 9. The key thing too. You told him about my boundaries? I said, sitting up. Yeah, he said. He called them boundaries. I just said, my sister's gone weird and doesn't pick up the phone after 9 anymore, even if Mum's blowing it up. And he goes, good for her. I went quiet. Good for her, I repeated. Yeah, he said. He said it sounds like you're doing what I might need to do eventually. Putting limits on how much access they have to your head. Something in my chest loosened. I hadn't realized how tightly I'd been holding it. So, Sam continued, when Mum says you're being dramatic, I'm just saying, you're not the only one who thinks some stuff wasn't okay. Tears stung my eyes. Thank you, I said, my voice wobbling. Don't make it weird, he mumbled. It was weird. In a good way. It was like watching a crack appear in a wall you've been banging your head against for years. Not big enough for the whole building to collapse, but enough to let some air in. The more we both dug into our own stuff in separate therapy rooms, the more coordinated our resistance at home became, without us planning it. Mom would say, "You're both so distant lately." And instead of me scrambling to fix it, Sam would shrug and say, "Maybe stop shouting all the time then." Dad would complain, "You never tell us anything anymore." And I'd say, "You don't listen without judging." While Sam nodded silently beside me. And Mom kept slipping in those comments about my sessions, like she was trying to reclaim control of the narrative. Don't tell your therapist we yelled at you, they'll think we're monsters. Don't talk about your father's temper, it's not as bad as you make it sound. Don't mention I cried, they'll say I'm manipulative. Every "don't tell" slid into my brain like a sticky note on a filing cabinet, except now I wasn't throwing the notes away. I was taking them to Hannah. My mom told me not to tell you about her crying, I said one week. Why do you think that is? Hannah asked. Because she cries in a way that makes everything about her, I said, surprising myself with my own bluntness. Like if I say I'm hurt, she starts sobbing about what a terrible mother she is, and suddenly I'm comforting her. Who does that protect? Her, I said. Always her. And who gets left alone with their feelings? I looked down at my hands. Me. We sat in that awareness for a bit. It hurt. And it also explained everything. Now, months later, I think back to that moment in the car a lot. Mom whispering, "Don't tell your therapist everything." Like we were allies. What she didn't realize was that she was right. I shouldn't tell my therapist everything if everything means the sanitized version of events designed to keep my parents comfortable. I needed to tell the parts that made me squirm. The parts that made her look less than perfect. The parts that my nervous system had been storing in a locked basement for 3 decades. I still feel guilty. That hasn't magically disappeared. Every time I walk into Hannah's office and open my mouth, there's a chorus in my head, "You're betraying them. You're making them look bad. They did their best. Other people had it worse." But there's another voice now too. Quieter but growing. It says, "What about you? What about the kid who was terrified of the sound of keys in the door? What about the teenager who comforted her crying mother after being yelled at? What about the adult who can't breathe when her phone rings?" That voice is the one I'm trying to listen to in therapy. Mom still doesn't know half of what I've said. If she did, she'd probably have a meltdown. She still occasionally throws little jabs. "Tell your therapist I said hi," said with a sneer, or tries to fish for what we talk about. "What did you say about me?" she asks sometimes, light and casual and deadly. "I said I'm working on myself," I reply. Which is true. Sam is still in therapy too. We don't talk about details much, but sometimes he'll text me a line out of nowhere. "Mark says we were emotional support animals with homework." Or, "Is it normal to feel like you're cheating on your family by telling the truth?" We both know the answer already. Yes. It feels like cheating because the rules we grew up with were about loyalty to the image, not to each other. But we're slowly, painfully, changing the rules. "So yeah?" Mom whispered. "Don't tell your therapist everything." And in that moment I realized just how deeply she feared being seen. And how deeply I needed to finally let someone see me. All of me. Not just the tidy. "It wasn't that bad" version she can live with. I don't know exactly where this goes from here. I'm not at the "cut them off, new family now" stage. I still go to some Sunday dinners. I still answer some calls. I still love them. It's messier than a clean break. But now, when I sit in that tiny office with the beige rug and the slightly crooked painting and Hannah asks, "What do you want to talk about today?" I think about my mother's whisper like it's a reverse instruction. "Oh, I think. That's what I need to say." And then I say it.